Hey everyone, this is a clip from a recent episode of the Men of Steel podcast where we talk about Superman and Superman adjacent topics. If you enjoy this clip, check out the podcast. You can find it at certainpov.com or wherever you get your shows. And this sort of sets up a thing that the show is very good about, which is a lot of setup and payoff. There are so many sequences that we find out more or that they use as reporters to piece together the solutions, which has this investigative quality to it that I think some Superman material lacks, but is a really important part about him being a news reporter.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of stories that kind of gloss over the Clark Kent job stuff because it's less visually exciting than the Superman adventure stuff, or we'll just kind of be like, Clark has super hearing and can see through walls. His investigative journaling is on easy mode, and I like how that's just not the case in this show. It's like, oh, you think those will solve all your problems? No.
Yeah.
It's like with, Batman is the world's greatest detective, and the bad Batman media is the Batman media that forgets that. Or what people love about Spiderman is that the story is just as much about Spiderman as it is about Peter Parker. And I feel like this show is maybe one of the only iterations or adaptations of a Superman story where Clark Kent, as Clark Kent, who he feels more comfortable being, is just as important to what's going on in the plot as Superman. And what I was pointing out to Red the other day is that it feels like a lot of times the plots that Clark is doing as a reporter are often in conversation with and in parallel with whatever's going on with Superman. So later on, we have the episode where the city turns on Clark for 15 seconds because he messed up a truck, which is in line with Vicky Vale wanting to write this expose. So the, real person reporter plot line mirrors and supports the Superman plotline. Same thing happens with let's all go to Ivo Tower, where the reporter aspect of what's going on is fundamentally linked with that plot, and seeing the two of them always play together is always so satisfying.
Yeah, I think that this version of the story definitely highlights that Clark Kent is the core of Superman and cannot be neglected in a Superman story, which I think is good. And it's interesting because we've gotten shows that kind of pick a side before, like most of the animated ones focus almost entirely on Superman and will only occasionally be like, Clark is doing a thing. And then the live action shows, for probably budgetary reasons, often focus more on Clark or Superman doing non-Superman things that are easier to, VFX up. And this show, being animated, can kind of just do whatever it wants. So it's like, we got Clark, we got Superman, we got quick changes between Clark and Superman. Let's do it.
I think they also do a good job of balancing the different types of reporter that Clark, Lois, and Jimmy are. Because sometimes that's an issue. Like Superman and Lois, I love, but Lois is the reporter on the show because that's her shtick. And she's a great reporter. She's a pro. She's such a good reporter that people love her and are excited when she shows up because she's this award-winning reporter. And Clark is too, but no one really talks about that in that project.
Yeah.
Here, Clark has his own type of thing. Lois is not that good of a reporter yet. She's, she'll get there, but they're all nascent. And then Jimmy has, the conspiracy theory stuff and the Flamebird stuff and all the stuff we're going to talk about.
YouTuber Jimmy Olsen. As soon as he said Flamebird, I was like, I have to Google this.
I loved it so much when they brought. Okay, we'll talk about Flamebird for a second because oh my god, I love that they went with that. It's so good.
Gosh, it's so funny.
All right, so for people who are not familiar with the lore of Flamebird in Superman stuff, Flamebird is the superhero identity that Jimmy Olsen would go under when he and Superman would travel into the bottled city of Kandor, where Superman would take on a Batman-style persona because they were in a Krypton-type environment, so he had no powers, and he went under the name Nightwing. Wow. Flamebird was his Robin. Remember, if you like the clip, after you're done liking and subscribing, check out certainpov.com, where you can find more episodes of the show, as well as a ton of other great shows.